Hello, everyone. Mr. Schultz here as we dive into the second part of 8.1 random sampling, specifically study types. All right, guys, so let's go over some vocabulary. I'm going to type it up and then you can write it. So, a survey is data that is collected from responses given by members of a group regarding their characteristics, behaviors, or opinions. So, if you have somebody and you're walking into a grocery store and they ask you, do you have time for a quick survey? And they ask, who do you want to vote for president? That's a survey. All right, let's go on. Experiment. So an example. So for example, a sample is divided into two groups. The experimental group undergoes a change while there is no change to the control group. The effects of the group are then compared. So you'll see this a lot in science. They'll give one group a life-saving drug to see will this work, and they'll give this other group a placebo, something that shouldn't help out. And sometimes, it does because there's this placebo effect that makes you think, all right, I'm taking this, and you feel better because you think it's going to make you feel better. Placebo effect will happen sometimes. And the other group, it should make them feel better if the drug is efficient. So this last one we have is observational study. Let's go on to in three, two, one. So in an observational study, it's where members of the sample are measured or observed without being affected by the study. All right, let's go on. So we have a check for understanding. Distinguish between the sample survey, experiments, and observations, and determine which one should go with which one. All right, I'm going to post the answers. We're going to go on in five, four, three, two, try your guess, one. So you might be getting a little confused between a survey and an observational study. So, for example, if the principal's asking students, they are responding and you're writing it down. Now, when a researcher is watching somebody, he's not asking them any questions. He's observing and he's writing down. He's like, oh, they're playing with that ball more than that ball. And he writes it down. Now, an experiment would be this last one, and a little bit easier. You're like, I think this will happen. Well, test it. Does it happen? Let's go on. So, designing a survey. Let's go through the different parts of designing a survey. So, the first thing we want to do is state the objective of the survey. So, our an objective we could have for our school is what should our mascot be? That's pretty good. Like we want to figure out what should our mascot be. Next, step two. The second thing we want to do is identify the population. Now, this is a multitude. So, for example, if we're talking about our school and a mascot, we're going to talk about the students, the alumni, the teachers, the administration, the parents, the people who live around the school. There are more than just people like the students at the school. But if you want to be specific, you could ask, you could stratify the results and ask, all right, let's ask 100 or let's increase that. Let's say 300 students, 300 parents, 300 alumni, as well as teachers and staff. Let's go on with step three. So when we ask our survey question, we're going to need to make sure it's unbiased. Don't ask, hey, do you want a dumb cat as our mascot? Or do you want a magnificent lion? I mean, that's going to push people to a certain way of saying, like, hey, I want the lion, or nah, I don't want the cat. You said it was dumb. Let's go on with step four. Just kidding. We're going to draw conclusions from a study now. So, for example, we're going to look at this. We've already asked our question, we've written down the results. So, for example, in this one, researchers are testing different types of virtual reality goggles. Each randomly selected participant could choose a type of goggle. The researchers observed the number of people who chose each type and the number of positive reactions. So we look and we're like, hey, some had some really good positive and some didn't. So now we have this question of identify the type of study. Well, it looks like this should be what? The scientists or the researchers observed what happened. So this is going to be a observational study. Draw a conclusion. I mean, just from the researchers' data, I would say, type C and D received the most people with positive reviews. I would go further and say the researchers should recommend. So they should probably recommend those type of goggles to be produced. All right. So now we're going to go jumping into identifying bias in studies. So when we have bias, we have to make sure we read it carefully and figure out we don't want errors. So let's identify any flaws in this design of the experiment. A teacher wants to study the impact of music on testing. She gives a test to her Algebra 2 class in a quiet environment. She then gives the same test to her geometry class, but this time with music playing softly in the room. Results, she found that the mean score of the test taken by the geometry class was higher than the mean score of the tests taken by the Algebra 2 class. She concluded that music is beneficial when testing. Well, the control, there's two groups here. The control group was the Algebra 2 class. The experimental group was the geometry class. So there are some flaws to this experiment. These are two different classes. Furthermore, the groups were not randomly selected. The classes are different and, they may be at different skill levels. So if we were to correct these flaws, I'd do the following. You could use either the Algebra 2 or the geometry students at similar levels, ability levels, and randomly select members of the control and the experimental groups from the sample you just created. All right, guys, that's it for 8.1, and I'll see you guys in class. Bye.